Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast, where we answer your sales distress calls. I'm your host, Liz Hyman, bringing the rescue boat to your sales challenges. In this ever-changing sales environment, it's easy for leaders to feel adrift. We're here to be the beacon guiding you to success. Each episode, I'm joined by top sales experts and practitioners who have navigated this waters and come out victorious. Together, we'll uncover the insights and strategies that will help you hit your sales targets and grow your business. So if you're ready to turn your sales distress into sales success, you're in the right place. Let's dive into today's topic. Hi, I'm Liz Hyman. Welcome to the Sales SOS podcast. Today, we're going to be talking about strategy, and I'm here with your crew, Chris Bowen and Mike Simmons. Let's just dive right in. Let's talk about strategy because this is important. We're planning for the new year. And I don't know about you, but when I talk to companies, often the CEOs, they're like well into January before they really have had time to plan. They're kind of coasting, hoping things will come together. So before we dig in to what people should be doing, let's talk about what we're doing. What are you guys doing in your own company as you start planning for the new year? Mike, you want to start? I know this is Mike's favorite topic. He likes it almost as much as sales process.
Almost. It's close. It depends on when you catch me, which one's the leader in the clubhouse. But number one, my planning period starts in September, October time period. That's when I start looking at, hey, what does 2025 or what does the next year look like? In years when things are rough or things are busy or just things are stressful or whatever, then it will happen at the latest Thanksgiving. And I take that week as a time to reflect and then start looking forward. So if you're this late in the year, December 13th, and you're going through this kind of planning process, or you're one of the people that Liz was talking about where you start getting into the plan in Q1, pick up your calendar right now and write down on September 30th of 2025, start my planning process for 2026. Your business will thank you. Your people, your teams will thank you. Your customers will thank you. So my process already started. I've got things planned out already in place around where we're focusing time, energy, and attention from a products and service perspective, how we're evolving ideal customer profile, where we're ICP that we're focused on, and we're executing the plan.
I love that. Chris, what are you doing? What are you? And I agree with you, Mike. It's late. It's late to be doing it now, but it's never too late. Like if you haven't done it, start now. But I think October is a really good time to start the process. And I don't think it's a one-day process. I think it takes time. Chris, tell me what you're doing.
I start in October. So I usually try to start with what hasn't worked and try to figure out why those things didn't work. Is it something around the offer? Is it something around the ICP? Is it something around pricing, timing, anything else? Because we had a lot of things that stretched this year from when I thought they would end up closing to when they actually closed. And so what is it that we could have done? What is it that I could have done? What is it that anybody could have done to make that a little bit different? Then look at also what worked, and is there any way to build on top of that, either through the exact issue or the exact area that we were having success or something else, right? So just trying to figure out where should we spend our time growing from things that we know worked but may be able to be improved, and which things didn't work. And if there's things that didn't work that we can improve, then we should do that. If it's things that we can't improve, then let's try to avoid those in the future.
I think those are a really great place to start. I think, well, let me talk about what I do. But I think this looking back thing is really important. And I want to talk about that in the next segment. What am I doing? I'm actually a little late this year. we started in October, but we've been doing it in little tiny bites. So we're still working on it. And I this year have really dug into the numbers more than I typically do. So for my company, because it's a small company, I'm not just doing the sales planning, I'm also doing the expense planning. Um, and hang on a second, because I think Renee just joined us. I don't know how to get to her. There she is. There's Renee. Yay, Renee's here. Um, Renee, we're talking about planning and what we do for planning for the new year. So I'm just talking a little bit about what I do. So I'm really looking into the numbers, and I think it's important for a sales organization as you're doing your planning. What are you paying for that you don't need to? What costs are frivolous? What costs are, do you have to expend? And how do you make sure that the investment that you're making in sales and marketing, how do you make sure you're leveraging them on the other side? And how do you make sure that you can hit the numbers you have with the resources you're willing or able to expend? And that's what I'm in the process of right now. So we've written up most of the plan, but we're really struggling with what are the resources that we need most to achieve the goals that we have. And that, I think, is hard. I think it's really hard for most companies to make a good judgment about, do I need that extra salesperson to hit that number? Can my salespeople do more than they're doing to hit that number? Can I do more than I'm personally doing to hit that number? What extra support do I need to hit that number? And I think that's a big part of planning. But I want to step back. Well, let's let Renee talk about what she's doing first.
I think my conversations right now are very similar, right? We're talking about scaling up. There seems to be a good bit of focus on sales right now, in the positive direction. We've talked about this year was a little bit sluggish, and has been for most of the year. I feel there's a lot of momentum picking up around, and people are ready to either make the changes that they've been hesitant to make, or they feel their own personal market picking up some. There seems to be a lot of trying to project what the needs are going to be in the next 6 to 12 months. And my conversations are a little more right now, not trying to project out 12 months, leaving some open room, right? And trying to scale into the needs. So trying to figure out what we need to get to milestones along the way to then trigger the next, like if we hit this, then that. So that seems to be more of my conversations right now.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of that too. Mike, what are you going to say?
Yeah, I think this is, again, I know in this area of the conversation we want to focus on the strategy, like what's our strategy for planning, and we talked a bit about, hey, one is timing. When do we go through the timing piece? The other one is what is it that we ultimately want to accomplish? Like, what's this future thing that we're working toward? Where are we going? Do we understand what the goal is? And that goal could be just what we get done tomorrow, or it could be the goal that we get done at the end of next year, or the goal that we have at the end of a given quarter. And I think this piece that Renee highlighted is really important. That timing, when you start talking about fiscal year or annual planning, is really driven by some old thinking around what are we going to accomplish and what are we going to plan for in a given year. A number of organizations have shifted into quarterly planning and looking at what are we going to do from a quarterly perspective, and then how do we iterate on it. Intel was a client of mine way back when. They would look at an annual plan. They've moved a couple of years ago into quarterly planning because the speed of the market was happening so quickly. So have a goal, have an objective, have something that you want to achieve. And once you understand what that something is that you want to achieve, make sure that you've aligned inside your organization on that thing that you want to achieve. That organization can be you as an individual or your team. If you're missing either of those things, you've not earned the right to start putting together a plan to achieve the objective, because you just don't know the objective. So leverage your covey. Begin with the end in mind, understand what that objective is, understand your timeline on that objective. So there's just a couple of other things I would add.
So a lot of companies do planning for this time of year. What numbers do we hit? What numbers are we going to hit? How much resource do we need, right? So that's what we were just sort of talking about. But Mike taking it to that next level, which is being strategic. So being strategic might just be, we want to still have this company next year. What things need to happen in order for that to be true? Or maybe we want to continue to grow and expand who we are and who we reach. And if that's true, we need to understand, what does that expansion mean really? And how then, what needs to be true in order for that to happen? And how do we plan around that? So the difference between planning and strategy, and it's really interesting because we had this plan today, and I just watched somebody who I can't find the video who was talking about this yesterday. So it was kind of funny timing, but a plan is about activities. A strategy is about that higher level vision. We're going to build a new plant. That's an activity. It's not strategic, right? It fits into. Wait, Renee,
It's not why we're building the new plant.
Right. The why we're building the new plant is what matters. The building the new plant are the activities that happen to make whatever that is. So if we want to quadruple our production, there are lots of ways we could do it. We could build a new plant, we could outsource, we could do all kinds of things. But first we need to think that we want to quadruple our production. But before we do that, we need to understand, why would we want to do that? Do we want to serve more market? Do we just want to get richer? Like, what is our strategy? What are we doing? What's this high level thinking? And then the activities matter. But truly, activity without strategy is chaos. And you guys have heard me say that many times. But I think that when we plan activities, or we just plan for goals. We need to hit this 10% increase in revenue over last year. That's our goal. That's not a strategy, right? 10% increase is not a strategy. It's just a number.
Yeah. Well, I think also when you're looking at your strategy, if something changes relatively dramatically from the previous year, you should explain that to why are we making this shift in this way. I found that people are really, really good when you give them the information instead of treating them like they're children and aren't going to be able to understand it and don't get it. Sometimes you'll get really good ideas around other things that may impact that you can leverage. But if you keep it within just a small cadre of people, then you're hoping that it will work out that way. I've tended to find that people will act like adults if you treat them as such. So
Mike, I know you have something to say. Hang on one second, because I want to drive that point home. So when I was working for Miller Heiman and I was facilitating the Miller Heiman program, strategic selling mostly, I was working with some of the top companies, the top sales teams in the world: Hewlett Packard, Coca-Cola, NCR, Kodak. I know it was a very long time ago. Johnson Controls, right? Even some of the top accounting companies. And every single program, I had to stop for 20 minutes out of the 2 days so I could listen to the salespeople tell me how corporate was doing everything they could to undermine their sales. They were, getting rid of a product that was everybody's favorite product. They were, right? They were prioritizing things nobody wanted. What?
Changing the comp plan.
Right. Because no one understood why this was happening, they weren't on board to do it. So it's having the strategy is important. Sharing the strategy is equally important. Mike, what were you going to say?
I think there's something that we should go a little bit deeper into and really distinguish the difference between strategy and tactics.
Yes.
Because I think there are a lot of people out there who, like you were saying, they'll focus more on the tactics, the work that's being done, and just keep doing it and doing more of it without actually seeing how it aligns with the overarching strategy and ultimately getting comfortable starting to say no to certain work because it doesn't align. So do you mind if I share my
Oh,
definition?
no, this is a
Two?
hugely important topic. What is the difference between strategy and tactics?
Okay, so the way I would put it simply is that strategy is how. Strategy is the how. So if, let's say, I've got a goal, an objective that I'm working to accomplish, a growth goal or an adoption goal or whatever it is, my strategy is my three-pronged approach that I'm going to apply to get there. Like how. And I would put that into different buckets. And the how could be focused on a number of different things. It could be new products. It could be new services. It could be growth within existing accounts. It could be improved metrics, whatever it is. Like your strategy is up to you. And too often.
Okay, I'm going to stop you for 1 second. Because what you've just said is we have strategy at different levels. So you have your highest overarching strategy about who your company is, who you want to be, how you want to impact the world, how you want to be seen. But then you say, within that, I'm going to make some goals. And then you have strategies within that to create goals. How are we going to do this highest level thing? Well, we have these goals. Okay, then how are we going to achieve each of these goals? But then, so that's the how. Then let's go to the tactics.
Yeah. So just keep going, Renee. Yep.
I just want to add a phrase in that I think it's a little bit consultant speak, but it really does help explain the strata that we're kind of moving through, and that is planning and the how that Mike just described are applied strategy, right? Like so you have strategy, applied strategy, and then tactics. Right. And I think that helps people because they need, there's that one more category that gets really nebulous without a label.
Yeah. And so there's a number of different things that will happen when you come, especially when you add more people into the conversation, right? You have people who have a different perspective of what the thing is that we're working toward, or this, whatever the goal is, the mission, the view on how we're going through and doing it. There are all of these other things that end up happening as you add complexity into the discussion. So when you add that complexity and you add people in, make sure that as a group, you agree on what your definition of some of these terms, whether it's definition of what a goal is or the objective or what the specific objective is, your definition of what strategy is or what strategies you're focused on, what lens you're looking at it through, where you're shining your light. Just to kind of simplify, I like to look at it in the context of goals and then actions. Actions are the strategy, the how, and then metrics are the tactics, the work that's done on a daily basis that you hold yourself accountable to doing. And then when you do the work should yield a result. And if it doesn't, you may need to either fire yourself from the work because you're not capable of doing the work, fire the work because the work is not working, or make some adjustment to either the strategy or tactics. So to break it down, goal, objective, strategy, how, tactics, what? What's the specific thing that we're doing? Tactics may change frequently. Strategy should not. If your strategy is constantly changing inside your organization, you're leading your team inappropriately. You're moving too fast in certain areas. And I understand that we all want to move fast and we all want to get things moving forward, but let's be really clear. Is it the bucketing of the actions, strategy? Is it the bucketing of that work into these areas, or is it the actual work that we're talking about? And let's not confuse the two. That's my view on this stuff. And I think people confuse it a lot and they get caught up. And what ends up happening, if you're confusing it inside your organization, what ends up happening is a lot of your people have a long to-do list and they just have more work that they just keep adding to that to-do list. And they don't know how to eliminate certain work from that to-do list. If you have people who are working through a big to-do list and don't know how to eliminate it, you have a challenge of the team not understanding what the strategy is that you're applying to achieve the result.
So part of what a strategy should do then is help us prioritize our activities. So if the activity is not moving us toward the priority and or moving toward the goals and the strategies that we've set in place, then that is an activity that needs to be deprioritized.
Yes.
And we as leaders tend to forget about what my dad used to call the stop investments. When we were doing key account planning at Miller Hyman, we always included if you're going to do this, if you're going to go here, if you're going to prioritize this, what are you going to stop doing. And I think that's harder than any other thing we ask people to do.
Yeah, it's no different than when you promote somebody into a more senior role. You have to tell them this stuff that you used to be really good at, you can't do that anymore. This is now your responsibility. That's somebody else's now, right? In a lot of cases, like you may be able to give some guidance, but you don't want to become the crutch.
On the stop, start, keep thing, the stop part, I think is one of the reasons it's incredibly hard is I think often the people making the decisions don't understand how things are integrated. I'll speak from the marketing point of view. You could say, oh, we're going to stop these things, like what seems like busy work, right? And the wheels just stop turning because they have to be in place. Like there are just so many, like you can't not optimize your website. You will be invisible to people. You can't not, like they're just, you can't not continue to publish fresh content to your site. You will become invisible to people, right? Like whatever your other goals are dependent on that foundational work. And it's a lot of stuff. And then what you're doing and driving people to becomes what's integrated into the CRM. And then that affects sales, right? So it's more integrated than it's ever been. Still not enough, right? But more integrated than it's ever been, which means there are far more dependencies and complications and complexities to trying to stop things. And I think that's under-recognized.
Right. And I think, though, sometimes it's about, and we're going to switch topics here. I want to just kind of wrap this up. But I think it is sometimes about we're going to go after this market, which means we're going to stop addressing this market. We're going to focus on this product, which means we're going to let this product die. We're going, right? So how are we realigning? You can't just stop doing the foundational work. You can't just stop prospecting, right? Because you're busy closing business. They're all priorities. Exactly. You can't just stop managing your brand because you want to do something else. But we often have to narrow the scope in one area in order to get broader in another or to grow in another. So,
Liz,
but it's really important at this point, as you're doing your planning, that you have some vision about where you're going, some priorities in place, some strategies to get there that you're now going to plan around who's doing what activities to get that to happen. It's hard. I think we make it sound like, oh, our yearly planning, that's just so easy. Everybody just come in with your list and tell us what you're not. That's not strategic, right? Strategic is starting with where are we going? What do we know? And which is going to take us to the next topic that I want to talk about, which is where have we been and how does where have we been help direct where we're going? What do we need to understand from the past? So stick with us, join us in our next episode, and we're going to talk about understanding the past to understand the future. So thanks for joining us on our first episode of this series on strategy and planning for the new year.
And that's a wrap of this episode of the Sales SOS podcast. A huge thank you to our experts for throwing us a lifeline with their insights. We hope today's episode has equipped you to navigate the sales seas with confidence. Never miss an episode. Subscribe to the Sales SOS podcast on your favorite platform. If you have questions, comments, or topics you'd like us to explore, join us live on LinkedIn every second Friday or share your questions on YouTube or LinkedIn. Until next time, keep sailing towards those sales goals. I'm Liz Hyman, your captain here at the Sales SOS podcast, saying smooth sailing and successful selling.